Good morning. It is Tuesday, the 10th of February. I'm Maeve McMahon, and this is Europe Today, your daily dose of European news and analysis, live here on Euronews. Coming up, you've got mail. European heads of state and government have received an important letter from Brussels. Ahead of this Thursday's leaders' retreat, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has penned a lengthy note calling on EU capitals to help create a stronger single market, cut red tape and be ready almost for a multi-speed Europe. No business as usual, she says, for the sake of European competitiveness. For more, we can cross straight over to Strasbourg, where our EU news editor Maria Tadeo is standing by for us. Good morning, Maria. So it's a big week here to save the European economy, but can they get it done?
Look, Maeve, yes, and we are in Strasbourg because, of course, a plenary session is expected to take place today and tomorrow, but the focus very much is on Thursday when that informal retreat with European leaders Mario Draghi and Enrico Letta and, of course, the Commission and the Council represented will take place. Is it a week to save the European economy? That's how this retreat is built, but, of course, it's a very difficult job at hand. Yesterday, that letter from the head of the European Commission talked about improving the single market, seize in the moment. This is a geopolitical context that is difficult for Europe. Of course, there's also been the tariffs from the United States and this growing trade surplus with China from the rest of the world or to the rest of the world. So it really is, according to the head of the Commission, time for Europeans to step it up. One of the most interesting parts, which hopefully we can put up on the screen, is that letter is the head of the Commission now says the goal is to do everything at 27 to get agreements and consensus. But if that is not possible, it should not prevent a lack of ambition, and therefore European countries should turn to other instruments like enhanced cooperation, smaller coalitions to get it done. Obviously, that is an allusion to a two-speed Europe. The countries that want to integrate further should be able to do so in smaller groups. That obviously is a reference to the pragmatic federalism that Mario Draghi stated last week going into the summit. There is a lot at stake, but obviously we also know that this is a union at 27, and this is going to be politically a very difficult debate.
Indeed, Maria, and I mean there's still big political divisions ahead of this summit, and why would this time be different? This idea, as you know and you said yourself, of a federal Europe has been toxic for many decades.
Well, for many decades, too, and we see there's very different visions around the table. The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and the German Chancellor, they stress the focus should be on cutting red tape and making business easier in Europe and helping the industry, what they call is a less ideological approach to the economy. But if you look at the French President Emmanuel Macron, who today has put out a major interview across the European press, he says this is really now the time for Europe to take a step ahead and to also develop a joint borrowing capacity to be able to deal with the challenges of a new era, obviously alluding to Eurobonds and joint debt. This is obviously a very difficult subject. It is something, however, that the Europeans want to kick off and kickstart the sequence. And let's not forget also when the head of the European Council, Antonio Costa, spoke exclusively to Euronews 2 weeks ago, he said he does expect clear political guidance on this topic by the end of the summit on Thursday. Now, to debrief all of this, because of course the focus is on the economy, but also on security. We are joined by Rino Terres. He is an MEP from the European People's Party, but also a very long history and personal history in the army in Estonia. Sir, first of all, I want to ask you, going into the summit on Thursday, there's a lot of ideas floated. Joint debt, less bureaucracy, a stronger single market, all of this in the name of defense and security. Do you have any hopes that we get to a real breakthrough?
Well, I still have hope in Europe, and I hope that European leaders understand that we are at the current moment in the situation where only Europe can deal with the European security, and the rest is assured by the others.
And when you hear things like Eurobonds, joint debt, we all go into the market as Europeans and we tap markets for more debt to be able to pay for defense. Is that something that you go, yeah, ultimately there's no other option?
No, I'm not very fond of loans, and I should admit that countries should find their own resources to increase their defense expenditures and not do it together.
I want to talk about the trip that you took to the United States, but before that, when you think of the idea of a pragmatic federal Europe, do you like that? Is Europe a federation? federation? Should it be a federation?
Well, I don't think we need to discuss it today, because we see that there is no chance that the Lisbon Treaty will be changed. So we need to concentrate on things which we can change and which we can do, and that is one thing. We need to invest more in defense, separately every country, but together also.
And you were in the United States on a diplomatic mission and a trip. I believe you also attended an event which President Trump also was in attendance. Did they call you weak, decaying, your face in civilizational erasure? Did they say that to your face, or is there a lot of theater built in the language?
There was a lot of theater, and the whole event was pretty crazy. But the message there was very clear. Everything they say, they mean it. And they mean that they say that they are dealing with their own hemisphere, and what is happening in Europe should be dealt by European countries. The message is Europe is the second richest economy of the world, which means Europe can do if they want, and I agree with them. I mean, Europe can do more.
But help me understand, when you say that they mean what they say and they say what they mean, what does that actually mean? Is it Europe now takes care of its security? Ukraine, it's a business for Europe to deal with? You have to find a peace deal? What's actually at stake?
Well, what they say is that the US has paid too long and too much. 75% of the NATO has been paid by NATO funding has been paid by United States. They think it's unfair. They want to see deeds, not words. And what they say, yes, the summit said that the NATO countries are ready to spend 3.5% on defense and 5% altogether with the resilience funds. But they don't see real actions. They always mentioned Spain, etc., who are not really paying their part. And they say European countries need to pay. It was, of course, very easy to be an Estonian there, because Estonian government has allocated 5.4% on GDP on defense. So everywhere where I went, they said, we are with you, we are with you, we are with the Baltic countries, but we want to see that other big European countries start to pay also their part.
You know, to be clear to some extent, the Spanish, what they say is that 5% NATO was totally random, only created to appease Trump, and that really NATO has always been measured in capabilities. Obviously, that is the counter-argument. But I want to ask you about Greenland. Did that come up in any conversation? Is it bluff, ultimately? Has that question been sealed?
Well, I guess that question has been sealed. They understand that the effort to take over Greenland was not a sane one. People in the Congress said that is not going to happen, but they understand also that Greenland is not defended enough, that we have to invest as a NATO more to the Greenland's defense.
What about when it comes to Russia? Obviously, the criticism has been that the deal that was initially placed on the table was pro-Russian. It was not a good deal for Ukraine. What did you get out of those conversations? What's the state of mind, the zeitgeist, when it comes to a potential peace deal?
Well, the President Trump and all his administration thinks that this war is something which happened because Obama and Biden allowed it to happen. So it's their war.
So not Putin.
They want to have a peace, but they don't feel that it is somehow has something to do with them. It's of course Putin, but they say that that is the presidents of US who allowed that to happen. I'm not sure whether that is the case. Rather not, but still they think that to end the peace, end the war in Ukraine is something Europe has to deal with.
Very briefly, do you trust them? You had meetings with them. Did you come out of it thinking, okay, we can work with them? They're not very polite, but we can work with them.
I trust that NATO still exists and that there's still all discussions with congressmen and senators assured me that they are still part of NATO, but they want us to do more.
Well, thank you so much. Of course, that has been now the fundamental question for a few weeks, months now since President Trump returned to the White House. What is the value of Article 5 if the U.S. is not committed to NATO? Of course, Maeve, that is it for us on day one here at the European Parliament, but more to come from today and tomorrow.
Indeed. Maria Tadeo, Euronews' EU editor, thank you so much for that update. Live from Strasbourg, and of course to your guest, Riho Terrace, the Estonian MEP. Now, ahead of Thursday's summit, some EU leaders appear to be engaging in a bit of political speed dating, going so far as to organise their own pre-summit meeting to coordinate positions with like-minded partners. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz is set to huddle with Italy's Prime Minister Merz-Meloni and also Belgium's Bart de Wever. For more on what this all means for the EU, we can head now straight to Berlin and bring in our correspondent, Laura Fleischmann. Good morning, Laura. So Merz and Meloni are now being called a power couple. How come?
Well, yeah, they are truly the new European power couple. It is because they have a great relationship on a personal level, but also regarding politics. As of lately, they do agree on numerous topics, which does come as a surprise because Merz's party, the CDU, which is the conservative party here in Germany, was at first not quite fond of Giorgia Meloni. But as of lately, they do agree on migration, they agree on Ukraine, and they also agree on the economy of Europe. When Merz visited Meloni in Rome end of January, they wrote on a position paper together where they truly laid the groundwork for the meeting taking place on Thursday. They want to strengthen the EU single market. They want to reduce barriers still intact regarding the trade of goods and services. And they also want to reduce the bureaucracy of Europe. And as I said, it does lay the groundwork for the summit, for the meeting. And they want to convince the other European leaders of their own plan for Europe. So let's give it a listen what Merz said himself when he was in Rome end of January.
The conditions for very close and even more collaborative partnership between Germany and Italy are in place. We want to make 2026 a year of opportunities and a year of decisions. The prerequisites for this are there. There is a very high degree of agreement in Germany and in Italy regarding the assessment of the challenges we face together in our countries, in our democracies, and also in the European Union.
Auch gemeinsam in der Europäischen Union.
Friedrich Merz there. And Laura, is the relationship between Merz and Meloni the end of the Franco-German EU engine as we know it?
Well, not, of course, the relationship between Macron and Merz is still ongoing, but it does seem to have cooled off quite a bit. This could be due to the lack of support for Macron in his own government and the French government, but also due to tension regarding the Mercosur trade deal, which Merz was a huge supporter of. He was one of its biggest advocates, but Macron tried to block it from the European Parliament. And this furthermore shows how different their approach is regarding Europe's economy, regarding the future of Europe. And this could really have pushed Merz into Meloni's arms and made him look for alliances elsewhere.
Okay, Laura Fleischmann there, thank you so much for that live update from just outside the snowy German Chancellery. Well, one area where Merz and Meloni do align is on ending the war in Ukraine. And just last week we saw 2 days of talks wrapping up in Abu Dhabi, but no new date is set for new negotiations. But the plan is to meet very soon in Miami. Meanwhile, President Zelensky has said the US has set June as a deadline to end these talks. For more, we can bring in now Sasha Vakalina, our Ukraine correspondent, who's here with us on set. Good morning, Sasha. Just tell us, how likely is this June deadline?
Well, this is not the first deadline that we're hearing regarding when it could be possible to put an end to Russia's war against Ukraine. Is it likely? Is it possible? Yes, it is. Is it more likely than the previous ones? Now, this is where it gets tricky because the negotiations are, of course, ongoing. And just these days, we've heard a very sharp turn in the Kremlin's position. Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, he accused the United States of refusing to implement their own promise, that he said. In Anchorage, we accepted the proposal of the US. They made an offer. We agreed, and the problem should have been resolved. It seems they proposed it, and we were ready, and now they are not. Now, what Sergei Lavrov is doing here is he's saying that actually the whole idea and what he calls a promise to push Ukraine into ceding territories and to push key forces to surrender is coming not from Russia, but he is pointing the finger as if this is the US promise, Maeve. And this kind of criticism and this kind of sharp words from the Kremlin regarding the US administration is not something we've heard before regarding these negotiations and the diplomatic process.
And what about President Zelensky? He was speaking last night in Kyiv.
President Zelensky made sure to state his position, to say that the US administration is good and reliable partner for Ukraine. And he said that Ukraine and the rest of Ukraine's partners, that includes the US, that includes, of course, the European Union, are on the same page when it comes to how to put an end to Russia's war against Ukraine. Let's take a listen.
The main thing is that our partners are on the same page as we are in Ukraine. Peace is needed, and reliable security guarantees are the only real basis for peace and for ensuring that the Russians do not break the agreement with one strike or the other, or with one hybrid operation or another. The documents on guarantees are ready. There is no alternative to security, no alternative to peace, no alternative to the restoration of our state.
Немає альтернатив.
The date is not yet set, as you said, for the next round of the negotiations. We also don't know regarding the format. Will it be the bilateral format, Russia-US, or Russia-Ukraine, or trilateral with the United States, as it happened in Abu Dhabi? But at the same time, there might be some sort of the negotiations taking place in the coming days when during the Munich Security Conference, because this is when we can expect some sort of a high-level meeting. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to be on the ground in Munich with a large Ukrainian delegation there. We can expect at least some meeting on the sidelines, as it happened at the World Economic Forum in Davos when Zelensky met Trump, also at the sidelines of the Davos week, Maeve. And this is when we can hear a little more. Interestingly will be the fact that it's not going to be Witkoff there in this case, it's going to be Marco Rubio. So we might hear some new progress and some new statements coming from the US administration regarding the next steps in this diplomatic process.
And we know there's a big European delegation as well going to the Munich Security Conference, and Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, has also confirmed her attendance. Sasha, thank you so much for that update, as always. But now, moving on. If you haven't heard of Bad Bunny before this week, now I'm sure you have. His 14-minute, highly political intervention at the Super Bowl this week has turned millions of heads here in Europe. Our Jakobianis takes a look.
God bless America, whether it is Chile, Argentina, Uruguay. Bad Bunny listed over 20 American nations during the Super Bowl halftime show. And this statement was not just a shout-out. It was intentional and carried a message. Your reporter was asked to explain his phenomena. And even if I don't usually listen to reggaeton/Latin/trap/everything, I have to tell you, it is big. So why everyone in Europe is talking about Bad Bunny? Short answer, because he made history. He became the first artist ever to perform the Super Bowl show, which is the most watched event on US television, entirely in Espanol. And on doing so, Bad Bunny, the world's most played artist on Spotify last year, flipped the script. And millions watched his performance, but not everyone was dancing. Donald Trump hated, calling it absolutely terrible and complaining that nobody understands a word this guy is saying. And that's exactly the point Bad Bunny was making. He isn't just a singer, he is a cultural earthquake, challenging what it sounds like to be American. And as you might have guessed, it's not just about music, it's about identity.
Before I say thanks to God, I'm gonna say eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans and we are Americans.
While Trump's base sees the Spanish language as a threat, Bad Bunny puts it center stage. And this year he's bringing his tour to Europe. And what if you are not into reggaeton? You can always go back to your millennial Green Day, who also opened the show. And Trump hates them too, which seems to be a solid recommendation these days.
Jakobianis there on the Puerto Rican star rapper Bad Bunny. If you were one of the millions who tuned into that spectacle, do let us know what you thought of it. You can write to us here at europetoday@yournews.com. And as always, for more news and analysis and context on anything going on here in Brussels or beyond, check out yournews.com or download our app. We'll also be back live in Strasbourg tomorrow morning with our Your News EU editor, Maria Tadeo. But that does indeed bring this Tuesday's edition of Europe Today to an end. Thank you so much, as always, for your company. Take care and stay with us right here on Euronews.